not necessarily human, but it's an individual. You know, a falling star, not necessarily.
Why would he code it like that?
Let me show you something in Revelation chapter 1, verse 1. Okay. He coded it like that so that we would have to go dig deep, so that we would have to go break out our Strong's concordances and line upon line, precept upon precept. Because if the star represents a fallen angel, if he's using a metaphor to represent a fallen angel, then we have every right to assume that the waters are not necessarily physical waters. He told us very clearly that the waters that the woman in Revelation 17 sits upon are not H2O waters, but they're nations and multitudes and peoples and tongues. It's the same waters that we see in Revelation chapter 8 that the wormwood made bitter. Now, wormwood, think about it, he's the Antichrist, right? He has a beef against God. He hates God and he hates Christ and he hates his kingdom. He's going to come down here and persuade so many other humanity with the same spirit. And if I come down here and I persuade you that you should side with me, if I'm bitter and if I'm wormwood, guess what? You're going to be bitter and you're going to be wormwood also.
Oh, so we're saying in 11 that many men died of the waters. So we're saying that since the bitter men, killed the regular men?
Sure. There's going to be so many armies that are going to go out, you know, under the inspiration of the Antichrist, under the inspiration of wormwood himself, and they're going to be killing the righteous people. They're going to be killing the saints. You know, Revelation chapter 17:10 says that the waters that you saw represent multitudes and nations and peoples.
That's pretty.
Yeah, the Bible answers itself.
It's not easily discerned.
Yeah, it takes the Spirit of God. I'm telling you, because there's no way in the world I'd be able to understand these things were it not for, you know,
it's
God.
Like a Chinese box.
Yeah. But you asked the question, why did he code it? Why did he put it in mystery like that, so to speak? Let's go to Revelation chapter 1, verse 1. I heard somebody, I don't know, it wasn't David Fry, but there was another minister that was given a study in Revelation. Jack Finnippy. This is one of the things that, you know, I got out of his presentations. Revelation verse 1 says, the revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave to him to show to his servants things which must shortly come to pass. The King James says shortly, but in the margin, that word shortly in the Greek means quickly or rapidly. So in other words, he says that the events that are detailed in the book of Revelation are going to happen in rapid succession. Once they start, it's going to be a short time till they're finished.
About 3.5 years.
Exactly, 3.5 years, you know, give or take a few months either way. But not only that, he goes on down to say, and he sent and signified it. Now again, when you do a word study on that word signify, it means that he encrypted it, or he encoded the messages. It's just like if you're going to make a program and you're going to try to make it password protected. You know, the more skillful encoded it is, the harder it's going to be for somebody to break the code. Now, this minister that I was listening to, he was saying that, first of all, when John wrote his message, they were under a time of heavy persecution from Rome. If God gave him a message to describe the doings of the Roman Empire at that time, because in Revelation chapter 17 it tells us that the woman which you saw is that great city that reigneth, present tense, over the kings of the earth. Now you ask yourself the question, which was the great city that reigned over the kings of the earth during the time of Christ? It was Rome. They were under the Roman Empire at that time. So, you know, there was a message that God wanted to get out to his people. But now there were two reasons in my mind why he codified it. Because he didn't want the people to understand it in that time, and also because he knew he does. To me, he doesn't want the enemy to understand it to a large degree.
Right.
He doesn't want Satan to understand it. And I'll tell you why I believe that, because in 1 Corinthians chapter 2, you know, all through the scripture, all through Old Testament scripture, we have prophecies that the Messiah was going to come and he was going to die a painful, you know, horrible death. And through his death, he's going to bring many to righteousness. Isaiah 53 tells you the whole chapter. He says, who has believed our report, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? He goes on to say how he was going to come up as a tender plant and a root out of a dry ground. But to make a long story short, God hides things from Satan because he wants Satan to play into his hands, so to speak. He said, if the princes of this world had known the mystery of God, then they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. You know, if he had read the scriptures and if he had understood the scriptures, he would have known that he should not have even touched Christ. You know, he would have known that through death, Christ is going to destroy him that has the power of death.
So he hides it from Satan and he reveals him to us.
Exactly.
I was wondering why they chose Barabbas, you know, to release Barabbas.
Yeah.
I'm thinking to myself, you know, if he knows that this has to come to pass, why is he allowing this to happen? He was deceived himself.
Yeah. He was deceived. In other words, it's like a chess game, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a chess game. I might sacrifice my queen knowing that 5 moves later he's going to be in a position where I'm going to be able to checkmate him. But he not looking that deeply into the position. My opponent, can't see that deeply. So I mean, it looks to him like I made a mistake. In other words, when God left Christ to the hands of the Pharisees and the Sadducees, that was like a queen sacrifice. He said, finally I got him. Once I take him out of the way, I'll be able to have, the world. Well, guess what? He was playing right into God's hands, because God saw that 2,000, or just 2 days later, he was going to raise up, and he was going to snatch the keys of death and hell. So he's just outplaying his opponent. The reason why, in my mind, the reason why he signified it, or the reason why he encrypted it, not necessarily to hide it from us, because it's his purpose for us to understand it, but he doesn't want the enemy to understand it until,
The last days is meant for the chosen.
Yeah. That's right.
Just 144,000.
Yeah. Again, another coded number,
144,000, as we learned last week.
Yeah.
That came in handy.
Well, I'm going to have to look at that reference.
If
I want to
that's
find out
true,
exactly.
that corroborates.
It corroborates
your
what I've been
study
saying.
altogether.
Yeah, it does. It'll be the one piece that I'm looking for to be able to
That was
make
one positive contribution.
That was the only, well.
Might have been what he came to do.
Yeah.
You're right. But I've heard you say that before.
What's that?
1,000 or thousands. I've heard you say that before in these presentations.
Yeah.
I've heard you say because it doesn't represent a specific number. It is a number of perfection of
Exactly.
a group of
Yeah.
Dan, who just left, thought that it might mean that there might be 12 groups of 144,000.
12 groups of 144,000?
Yeah. Maybe that's what the 144,000 is, 12 groups. That would be 1 million, 1 million.
No, you know what the symbolism is?
Like the height of the wall of New Jerusalem.
Okay, but the height of the wall.
Status of the saints.
It represents the status of the saints. It means that not just one person reaches 144,000 status. The reason why he pluralized it is because there's many people that have reached 144,000
But
status.
then
That's
that goes
why.
back to the technical question, why 12,000 from Reuben, why 12,000 from Gad? What's the significance of
12
12?
tribes.
Okay, let me show you.
It says 12,000, and that specifies
The
it.
gates are 1,000.
Exactly.
The gates are 1,000 wide.
And
There's 12 tribes. That's,
Yeah.
that's 12 times 12,000.
but see, the message is not. See, again, this is why it's good to study it as a mathematician. Where's that eraser? Let me show you something. I'm not saying that I'm a mathematician in a degree type of sense, but I understand enough about mathematics to know the message in here.
Enough to confuse me.
But now, if you study 12, first of all, times 12, of course, equals 144. All right. I never understood